My name is Enrico. Do not pick an NFT project name before watching this video. Alright, today's show is going to be about how to pick an NFT project name, why that is so critical, and what are the practical things that you can do to help yourself even before hiring an attorney to help you with your trademark protection. So you want to be thinking about a couple of things. You want to pick a project name that has really high IP, intellectual property value. So you want it to be distinctive and unique, like a Zappos or an Amazon or Google, rather than descriptive, Joe's NFT project. You want to make sure that it is not similar to another existing NFT project or even another trademark by a different company that's already out there. You want to pick a name that's not going to subject you to endless lawsuits and damage claims that could go on forever, torpedo all of your success as an NFT project. And you want to pick a name that's going to add seven-figure value to your project on exit. If you should ever sell your project or look for a buyer for your project, if you're going to ever exit your project, you want your intellectual property to add value to your project. No one's going to buy an NFT project with a bunch of trademark problems with the NFT project name. If you've ever gone to our website, travislegal.com, and read all of the articles, dozens, hundreds of articles about trademark registration, trademark availability, trademark litigation, you know that trademarks have always been mission critical for any business, for any startup. You need to have a solid trademark and you need to make sure you're not infringing someone else's trademark. So how do you pick an NFT project name that's not going to result in endless lawsuits and threat letters and add real-world value to your project? And let's face it, non-fungible tokens, the NFT projects, they're intangible property projects. The value of your project is inextricably tied to and linked to the intellectual property that you build into that value. The smart contract code, the branding, the copyright for the NFTs that you're going to mint, your licensing contracts that go with all of this. All of this is intellectual property value, but your trademark, your project name, is a key part of that value proposition. Today we're going to be talking about four things, and they're in two categories. The first is, how do you pick a project name? And I'm going to give you some strategies for going about picking a name and making sure that it is going to have trademark clearance, right? That you're not going to get sued, you're not going to get threat letters down the line, or at least you reduce the risk of that. And that it's going to be two steps. It's going to be a knockout search that you can conduct or hire an attorney to conduct. A knockout search is going to be a no-go. It's going to be, hey, start from scratch, think again. If I were you, there's no way I would use this as our project name because it's got too much risk associated with it. If that knockout search, that high-level search, comes back as relatively clear, then you can go on and do the second step, which is a professional search. And a professional search, we're going to talk about what that is and why that's important and how that gets conducted, and then to get an attorney opinion letter that says, here's your trademark risk. We believe that you can achieve registration. We think that this is a viable project name for your NFT project, and we're recommending that you go ahead and use that NFT project name. So again, knockout search just to see if you need to start from scratch before spending a lot of attorney's fees, then a professional search with an attorney to be able to see if this is going to be the NFT project name that sticks for you. Second thing that we're going to be talking about towards the end of this video, so stay tuned to the end, is because I'm going to give you search tips. How do you go about doing this knockout search? What is the strategy that you are going to need to use, because the United States Patent and Trademark Office and all trademark offices around the world are going to use these same strategies. So you need to mimic those strategies in order to make sure that you're doing an effective search. And I'll tell you, 9 out of 10 clients come to me and say, well, I searched for Google, I searched for my brand on Google, I put the project name into Google, nothing came back as exactly the same. That is not the test. Wait until you learn what the test is. It's coming up here. It is not a literal search. It is a very broad search in some instances. So just because your exact name's not being used already doesn't mean it's available for you. The other thing that we're going to be talking about at the very end of the video is what are the risks if there should be a trademark problem for your project name down the line. What is the liability, the damages that you can be sued for if you stumble on this critical piece of your business startup. All right, let's jump in. So, okay, I'm the NFT lawyer on YouTube, blockchainlawyer.crypto. Go ahead and subscribe if you like what you see here today. Today, as you know, we're talking trademarks, and so let's just kind of take a look at some high-level information here. The number of NFT projects out there as captured by Into the Block is pretty substantial. So right now we've got NFT collections of about 130,000 collections out there. 130,000 collections. They're pulling that information from OpenSea, Rarible, etc. So out of 130,000 NFT collections, how many of those collections have actually filed a trademark registration application with USPTO? Now, first things first, you don't need to register your trademark in order to have trademark rights. In the United States, many other countries, the first to use the trademark in commerce, the first to use it, domain name, website, launch on NFT Project on OpenSea, the first to use it is going to win. So we give priority to the first person to use the mark in commerce. But registration always a great idea. You can see here of those 130,000 projects, we have about 5,600 records, and some of those are going to be duplicates. So about 4,000 of the projects out there have actually filed an application for trademark registration. You can see here no registration numbers yet on a lot of these. You may recognize some of these, but these are all new applications. And there's a few that have been registered. It takes about a year to get through the process. My point is this: of 130,000 projects, only about 4,000 have filed an application for trademark registration. That's abysmal. That's a bad number, because you definitely want to file for registration and you want to make sure you get your trademark protected. Okay, let's take a look at some more information here that is going to guide us as we go through this process. This is going to be the USPTO.gov website, and this is the manual, the examining procedure manual that the assigned attorney for the USPTO, the examining attorney, is going to use in order to determine whether or not you can get registration, whether or not that your mark is confusingly similar to another mark that's already registered. We're going to come back to this in a minute. Let's talk a little bit about selecting an NFT project name. All right, that's today's shows. And the title of today's show is Don't Pick an NFT Project Name Without Watching This Video. So let's find out why I believe that these concepts that we're going to talk about today are critically important for you and your project. We'll be talking about a couple different things. We'll be talking about how to conduct a knockout search. This is a search that you can conduct yourself or hire an attorney to conduct. It's going to basically be a yes or no, an immediate red flag that's going to send you in a different direction. So if you do a knockout search and there's a major red flag, you're going to have to find a new project name. So this knockout search is your high-level search. Then we're going to be talking about professional searches and how those are conducted and what's involved there, why they're important. The next thing that we're going to talk about are some search tips. How do you go about doing this knockout search? What are the things that you need to be looking out for? And the last thing we're going to talk about, risks. If you don't do this right, what is it that you're risking? Are you going to be betting the farm, your personal assets, the success of your project, your ability to exit? The answer is yes, you're going to be risking all of that if you don't do this right. Key question that you're asking yourself in all of this effort is, am I infringing someone else's pre-existing mark? Am I infringing someone else's pre-existing mark? That's key. I mean, it's mission critical, because if you're infringing someone else's mark, they're going to send you a threat letter, they're going to file a lawsuit against you, they're going to shut you down. And if you can't be shut down because it's blockchain and it's immutable and you can't change your project name, right? What's going to happen next? They're just going to sue you for infinite damages forever and a day. You're never going to be able to sell this project or find an exit. So getting the right project name is critical. Make sure you're not infringing someone else's pre-existing trademark with your project name. And it's way more complicated and way different than you think. The question, am I infringing someone else's mark? I bet you don't know how to answer that question. You think you do, but you don't. Let's find out why. The only issue is my mark confusingly similar to someone else's pre-existing mark such that a consumer is going to be confused as to the source and origin of goods? That is, when they come to my project, are they going to potentially think that they're dealing with a different project, an already existing trademark that's already out there? Is there going to be consumer confusion between our projects? Because the law is there to protect consumers. It protects you, but it's there to protect consumers from confusion as to source and origin of goods and services. We do not want customers to think that they're buying a Nike shoe when they're not, to think they're at a particular domain name and website that's linked to Microsoft when it's not. Same with your project name. You have to pick a unique name. It's a strong trademark that is going to be identified exclusively as you. And the stronger your trademark, the more unique your brand, the better you protect your trademark, the more intellectual property value you are going to have. So let's take a look here at a knockout search. And a knockout search is really step one for you and your project. And this is something you can hire an attorney to do, but you can also do it yourself. And a knockout search is really just trying to identify whether or not this idea, this brand idea that I have, I'm going to name my company this, I'm going to name this project this particular thing that I thought of that's so clever, right? Is it even available to be used? Are you going to be infringing someone else's pre-existing trademark if you use it? So the knockout search is a really high level way for you to determine whether or not you need to think of another name. So this is going to be a search that you're going to conduct that's going to be an exact match search. So you're going to put in the literal exact name of your project, and you're going to see what comes back on Google search, and also at the USPTO, and also with GoDaddy on domain names. See what comes back, do a little investigative research, and you're going to have to play around with the search after you do the exact match. If nothing comes back that looks like it's similar in a similar category of goods and services, then go on to the next step. Swap out letters. An AE is going to be determined to be the same thing as A or E or AI or Y. So letter swaps are going to be important. CK is going to be considered the same as K, as C. So you need to try some variations of your expected, your projected, your idea, your brand that you've come up with that you want to use for your project name. And then you want to swap the words around, because trademarks are not literal, right? They can be if you have a 2-word mark, you got to put the one quote unquote search where you've got word 1, then word 2, then the other quote unquote search where you've got word 2, word 1. So you need to try all kinds of variations. Then you need to go and do those same search strategies on all the social networks and also at GoDaddy with domain names. About 75% of all the domain names registered don't have a website. So if you find an exact match that's not necessarily a red flag, you need to go see if there's a website there. If there's not, then maybe it's just a domainer, an investor, doesn't have any trademark rights, who just registered the domain name. Once you complete this knockout search, if you don't see any obvious problems of any other marks that are similar, not the same, that are similar to what you're doing, then you're ready for the next step. Your idea for your brand has not been knocked out. It's ready for a professional search. And a professional search is a search that is typically done by attorneys, but there are some other third-party search tools out there that can be used. But the goal of a professional search is to run an algorithmic search on a wide variety of databases, more than Google, more than the USPTO, more than just domain names. You want to get a professional search tool that's going to return a search report that is going to be phonetic equivalence, it's going to be letter and word swaps. It's going to tell you about what kinds of goods and services, any returns, and there will be well over 1,000 returns for whatever word or words you come up with, over 1,000 returns on your search report of things that could be similar. But it's also going to tell you, if it's a trademark search tool, what goods and services in international class those marks are registered in. That's important because you got Delta Airlines and Delta Faucet, no one gets confused. But you're not going to have another airline named anything similar to Delta. So once that search report comes back, and what we do is we order these search reports from third parties, we get them back, then we do an analysis of that 1,000+ return of items that could be problematic in order to identify those that we think are problematic. And we do an analysis of that report in order to be able to tell you, is this just a red flag? Is it a no-go? You're going to have to find a different project name, or is there a level of risk that's acceptable on the brand, on the project name that you want to use? Doing this analysis by a qualified attorney is really the Cadillac of your trademark search, because this is more art than science. We have a lot of experience trying to figure out what may or may not be problematic and digging into the returns to be able to advise you as to whether or not we would use that project name if we were you. So we're going to rate the risks, and we're going to also rate the chance of achieving registration. So you might have a risk of 5, meaning on a scale of 5 to 10, that's a very low risk. There are no words left in the world, so there's always some risk. But a 5 is going to be acceptable level of risk. But if you've picked generic or descriptive words, your chance of achieving registration may be low. If it's a risk of 8 and your chance of achieving registration is 0, you're going to want to know that before you launch your project and start minting NFTs. We're going to give you an opinion letter that is going to tell you what we think and how we rate the risk. And if we tell you to move forward, you can always use that opinion letter later on defense. If someone comes knocking with a threat letter saying you're infringing, this attorney opinion letter can be used to be able to deflect any claim of intentional or willful infringement, because you could say, I'm not an expert, I hired a qualified attorney, they said that this was sufficiently clear that there would be no likelihood of confusion, and that thus you've reduced your damage risk exponentially. So the opinion letter from the professional search is really what you're after. Let's talk about search tips. Remember, the test here is confusingly similar, such that a person would be confused as to the source and origin of goods, that they thought they were buying from company A or NFT Project A, and in fact they're actually buying from NFT Project B. So that's the test. It's a broad test. It's not literal. So first search tip is you disregard common words and descriptive words. So if you have NFT in your project name, that's purely descriptive of what that is. It's like cars, Enrico's cars. The trademark office isn't going to even see the word cars. They're not going to care about the word cars. They're going to look at the more formative use, the more trademark worthy word of Enrico. So if it's Ishkabibble cars or Ishkabibble NFTs, forget the descriptive words. Just focus in on the words that are going to provide you your trademark value. Those are things that you want to search for, those words that are unique. Adding words is not a silver bullet. Sometimes we get clients who are like, well, I have this additional word, or these other 3 words may or may not matter. It is a potentially distinguishing item, as you'll see with the examining attorney's manual, but not necessarily a silver bullet. Might not get you over the finish line. There are no words left in the world. Every company now has a website and a domain name, and so now every company is global. That has caused a traffic jam. at the trademark offices around the world, whereas there used to be lots of words available for branding and for regional or global companies. There are very few zero risk combinations of words or brands out there. So there's no words left in the world. That means getting an NFT project name is extremely challenging. Even attorneys order these professional search reports in order to do the analysis for you. So if you can't afford an attorney, definitely still get a professional search report. Remember, I'm going to put that in the description below in case you need to do it yourself, in case you don't have a budget to hire an attorney to do this trademark availability search, or otherwise known as a trademark clearance search. Now that we've talked about search strategy, let's talk about risks. Let's say you don't do it right, or you've already launched your project, or your attorney identifies a level of risk, but you accept that risk. These risks are going to affect priority rights, and priority rights are whoever uses the name in commerce first is gonna have priority rights over all subsequent users. So if you are infringing someone else's mark, if your mark is similar to someone else's pre-existing brand, you're not going to have priority rights. You can get shut down by threat letter or lawsuit. And of course, we've already discussed in blockchain, how do you do that? How do you rebrand? You might not be able to. That means you're just going to be liable for damages forever for infringement. And this is an area of law that is going to be very interesting to see how it develops, because normally courts will issue an injunction forcing the infringer to change their brand. Not so sure that is going to work in most of these cases in the NFT market. So the risks are, you're not going to have priority rights. You could get a threat letter, lawsuit, or worse. Under the Lanham Act, which is the trademark law in the United States, if you willfully infringe someone's mark, which can be willful blindness, you just didn't know what you were doing, or you took the risk, or you didn't do an availability search, you could be liable for up to $100,000 in statutory damages and the other party's attorney's fees. So this could be a 6 or 7 figure liability, even if the person with priority rights can't show one dime of damages. So the risk is huge financially for your business. And one of the risks is an impairment to exit, meaning if you don't do this search, if you don't get a good, strong brand, if you don't protect that brand, if you're infringing someone else's mark, if there's a bunch of other uses out there, it's going to impair the value of your company. So when you go to exit, if you go to sell someday, you may not have any buyers, because those buyers may not want to assume the risk that they're going to get shut down or sued later on. So these are all significant risks that you definitely want to take a look at. Now, once you go through this trademark availability, this trademark clearance process, if you find an available brand name for your NFT project, you're going to want to register that trademark in every jurisdiction that you're doing business. But for sure, if you're doing business in the United States, you want to get registered with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. There are all kinds of international classes that you can file in for different types of goods. For if you're an NFT project, if you're the copyright owner of the art, if you are doing some sort of licensing deal, if you're offering merchandise, there's all sorts of international classes where you can claim your priority rights. So get registered, stay protected, do it right. My name is Enrico. We'll see you next time.